Imagine waking up one morning and your body's most silent guardian, the liver, decides to go on strike. No warning, no negotiation, just complete shutdown. For 24 hours, this quiet organ, which normally works tirelessly behind the scenes, simply refuses to function. At first, you might not even notice, but within minutes, toxins that your liver usually neutralizes begin to flood your bloodstream. Ammonia from your food, byproducts from your gut bacteria, and even the natural waste your body produces start piling up like garbage in a city when the sanitation workers disappear. Your skin may start to itch, your eyes to yellow, and your brain to cloud. By the end of the first hour, the imbalance becomes critical. Without the liver converting nutrients and detoxifying chemicals, your blood turns into a toxic cocktail. Imagine alcohol poisoning, except now it's your own body doing the poisoning. Cells begin to malfunction, your energy collapses, and confusion sets in. If the strike continues through the day, the consequences escalate. Swelling in your brain, bleeding disorders, organ failure, your entire survival system spirals out of control. In just 24 hours, life itself hangs by a thread. So what really happens inside your body when the liver shuts down? And why is this organ so vital that even one day without it can tip the balance between life and death? Let's go inside the body and outside the box to uncover the shocking truth. Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the most hard-working organ in your body has silently quit. No alarms go off, no sudden stabbing pain, just a quiet rebellion beneath your ribs. The liver, the silent guardian that normally hums along 24 hours a day, decides to stop. At first, you don't notice. You stretch, you breathe, you carry on. But inside your bloodstream, a crisis begins to brew. The liver is not just another organ. It is a factory, a warehouse, a detox plant, and a command center all rolled into one. Everything you eat, drink, or swallow ends up passing through it. Every sip of coffee, every bite of food, every pill or medicine, all of it requires the liver's approval before your body can use it safely. It breaks down poisons, stores sugars, recycles blood cells, and makes the proteins that stop you from bleeding to death. It never rests, it never complains, and it is so essential that without it, your body unravels faster than you can imagine. Now imagine that factory shutting its doors. In the very first hour, the waste that your body constantly produces begins to back up. Ammonia from protein metabolism, bilirubin from blood cell breakdown, and countless toxins from your gut leak into your bloodstream unchecked. It's like a city where the sanitation workers suddenly disappear. Garbage piles up on every corner, and the smell of decay spreads instantly. Your skin begins to itch, your eyes take on a faint yellow hue, and your brain starts to cloud with the very poisons your liver usually keeps in check. By the next few hours, the crisis deepens. Sugar regulation collapses and your blood glucose swings dangerously low. You feel lightheaded, weak, and confused, as if you've been awake for 3 nights straight. Your blood chemistry is shifting into hostile territory. Proteins that normally help your blood clot are no longer being made. A small cut could bleed far longer than it should. Inside, the bloodstream becomes a toxic cocktail, alcohol poisoning without the alcohol, except now the poison is your own body. Half a day into the shutdown, the spiral accelerates. Ammonia levels skyrocket, seeping into your brain. Confusion turns into disorientation. Hallucinations might flicker at the edges of your vision. The kidneys, overwhelmed by the toxic flood, begin to falter. Fluid builds up in your abdomen, swelling painfully as your body loses its balance. This is not just discomfort, it's organ systems collapsing in chain reaction. As the hours drag closer to night, the brain swells, seizures threaten, and your blood grows too thin to stop internal bleeding. The heart strains against an ocean of imbalances. Every system, once harmonized by the liver's invisible hand, fights desperately to stay alive. By the 18th hour, survival itself hangs on a thread. The silent guardian has abandoned its post, and the fortress is crumbling. By the 24th hour, the body is on the edge of coma and death. Without machines to replace the detoxification, without a transplant to restore the lost factory, the damage is final. The human body cannot last even one full day when the liver shuts down. That is how vital this organ truly is. The thought experiment may feel like a nightmare, but it is rooted in medical truth. Patients with acute liver failure live this reality, and their survival depends on how quickly doctors can intervene. What this story reveals is how deeply every moment of your life is tied to the work of an organ that rarely gets the spotlight. It reminds us that the liver is more than a filter. It is a silent guardian, a chemical mastermind, and a worker that never sleeps. Take it away for just 24 hours, and the delicate balance of survival collapses before your eyes. The strike begins in silence, but the silence doesn't last long. Within the very first hour, your blood is no longer the clean river it once was. Normally, the liver filters every drop, pulling out poisons, converting waste, smoothing rough edges. Without that filter, the river turns muddy. Ammonia, a byproduct of breaking down proteins, drifts freely into your veins. At first, the effects are subtle. Sluggishness, a sense that your thoughts are just a little heavier, a little slower. You rub your eyes, tell yourself it's fatigue, maybe even the start of a cold. You don't realize the poison is already soaking into your brain. By the second hour, bilirubin begins to build. Old red blood cells, usually recycled by the liver, now release their remnants unchecked. Your eyes take on a yellow tint, your skin a faint golden hue. It might look like a sunburn in strange lighting, but it is a signal. The body is already drowning in its own leftovers. You feel nausea curling in your stomach. The food you ate a few hours ago sits undigested, fats swirling in your intestines because bile is no longer flowing. The third and fourth hours bring a new weakness. Glucose reserves are running wild. The liver normally keeps blood sugar steady, feeding your brain with precision. But with the factory closed, the balance collapses. Sugar plummets. You feel faint, shaky, dizzy. The room tilts when you stand. Your hands tremble as if you had been fasting for days. You crave something sweet, but eating cannot fix it. The machinery to release and regulate energy is gone. By the sixth hour, things are no longer subtle. Toxins swirl thick in your bloodstream, and the kidneys are overwhelmed trying to compensate. They work overtime, straining to filter what the liver abandoned. But they were never built for this load. A storm is spreading across your body, and the kidneys are the next battleground. Your abdomen feels heavy. Fluid begins to collect because proteins that normally hold water in your vessels are missing. A faint swelling starts around your waist. You notice your mind fogging. Words come slower, simple calculations confuse you, and memories slip through your grasp like smoke. Half a day in, the spiral quickens. You try to rest, but your body refuses peace. The itching in your skin grows worse as bile pigments seep beneath the surface. Your blood cannot clot properly anymore. A small scratch on your hand continues to ooze. The mirror shows a face that no longer looks like yours. Yellowed eyes, drawn skin, lips that tremble when you try to form a steady smile. Hallucinations creep in at the edge of your vision. A flicker of movement where nothing stirs, shadows that lean too close. The brain is under siege from ammonia, swelling cell by cell as toxins eat away at clarity. By the 18th hour, the storm turns violent. Seizures threaten. Confusion gives way to delirium, then to near coma. You speak, but the words are jumbled, nonsensical, as if your tongue no longer obeys your mind. The heart pumps harder, trying to push oxygen into tissues clogged with waste. The kidneys now fail outright. Urine output slows to a trickle, and what little appears is dark, pungent, poisoned. Inside your chest, blood grows too thin to clot. Even the smallest bruise could spread into dangerous internal bleeding. You lie weak, trembling, half aware of your body's betrayal. The final stretch of the 24 hours is no longer survival, it is collapse. The brain swells, pressure building inside the skull. Your consciousness flickers like a candle in a storm. Breathing becomes shallow, muscles twitch with fatigue, and organs whisper their last protests. Without machines to filter blood or a new liver to take the reins, the end is near. Death in liver failure is not loud or sudden. It is quiet, drowning in your own toxins, one poisoned heartbeat after another. And yet, in this nightmare, lies the truth of how much we depend on the silent guardian beneath our ribs. It is not dramatic until it fails, and by then it is already too late. Doctors who face acute liver failure know the race is against the clock. Each hour without function is another hour closer to irreversible collapse. Survival depends on speed, on dialysis, on transplants, on human intervention. Without them, no body can outlast the strike. This story is a warning, but also a revelation. The liver does not rest, does not complain, does not boast. It simply works, filtering, storing, building, repairing. It works for you every second of every day. Take it away for just 24 hours, and the city of your body falls into ruin. Respect it, protect it, and never forget the silent power that sustains you. The clock ticks past the first day without a liver, and the reality becomes undeniable. The body is not built to survive this rebellion. The bloodstream is a river of poison. The brain is drowning in ammonia. The kidneys are breaking under strain, and the heart is pumping harder but achieving less. You are slipping further away, each hour another layer of collapse. Doctors know this pattern too well. They have seen it in hospital wards, where patients arrive yellow-eyed, confused, whispering words that no longer make sense. They call it hepatic encephalopathy, a state where the brain is smothered by toxins that should never have escaped the liver's grasp. In its early stages, it feels like fatigue, fogginess, a lack of concentration. In its final stage, it drags you into a coma, silent and unreachable. The patient may look like they are sleeping, but the brain is shutting down piece by piece. The clotting failure adds another layer of danger. Your blood has turned thin, unable to seal even the smallest wound. Internally, vessels begin to leak. A nosebleed refuses to stop. A bruise spreads like spilled ink beneath the skin. Deeper inside, hidden bleeding may already be filling organs with silent pools of blood. The very fluid that gives you life now betrays you, refusing to follow the rules without the liver's quiet oversight. By now, your abdomen swells. Fluid called ascites gathers, stretching the skin tight, making movement uncomfortable. You feel pressure, a constant heaviness that no position relieves. Breathing becomes harder, not because the lungs are failing, but because the fluid presses upward, stealing space from your chest. You gasp more quickly, feel air as if it is thinner, and each breath comes with effort. The kidneys begin to collapse under this relentless burden. They were never designed to handle the toxins the liver abandoned. With every heartbeat, poisons slam against their fragile filters, scarring them, burning them, suffocating them. Urine turns scarce, dark, and foul. With it, another line of defense is lost. Your body is now a closed loop, recycling its own waste, unable to release the poisons that flood every organ. The heart races faster, beating with desperate energy, but it too suffers. Electrolyte imbalances twist its rhythm. Potassium climbs higher, sodium drops lower, calcium wavers. Each heartbeat becomes more erratic, a drummer in a band that has lost its rhythm. Arrhythmias lurk in the background, waiting to strike, waiting to silence the beat altogether. As the 24 hours drag to their end, your mind slips in and out of coherence. You no longer track time. Conversations drift past you. Sounds echo strangely. Light is too bright, shadows too sharp. The line between reality and hallucination blurs. You are watching your own body from a distance, a passenger in a machine that is breaking apart. And then comes the silence. Consciousness flickers, dims, fades. The brain swells against the skull, neurons gasping for oxygen and balance. The swelling has no room to expand. The rigid bone allows no mercy. Cells suffocate, connections snap, and your awareness dissolves into coma. The body, once a bustling city of coordinated systems, lies in blackout. But here is the truth, hidden in the horror. Even this scenario is not just fantasy. It is happening in hospitals, in emergency wards, in lives upended by sudden liver failure. Sometimes it comes from viral hepatitis, sometimes from drug overdoses, sometimes from a body pushed too hard by alcohol, toxins, or disease. It can strike the healthy as suddenly as the sick, and when it does, the countdown begins. The only hope lies in intervention. Machines can filter the blood for a time, standing in as artificial livers. Transplants can replace the factory entirely, a second chance at survival. But without them, no one survives long. A day is already nearly fatal. 2 days is almost always the end. The body simply cannot last without its silent guardian. And yet, even in the bleakness, the story carries a lesson. The liver is not just a filter. It is the quiet foundation of life. We abuse it often. Alcohol binges, careless diets, overuse of pills and supplements, believing it can take the punishment forever. It forgives us more than any other organ, regenerating, healing, pushing forward. But it is not invincible. This story is a reminder that every choice we make, every sip, every habit is a message to the liver. And one day, if we push too far, the strike may not be imaginary. So respect the factory within you. Care for the warehouse, the builder, the guardian. Without it, your body is a city without order, a world collapsing in slow motion. One day without the liver is all it takes to transform life into a fragile thread, ready to snap. The nightmare of a body without a liver may sound like an abstract thought experiment, but medicine is full of stories that echo this scenario. Doctors have witnessed patients arrive in emergency rooms with acute liver failure, sometimes collapsing within hours. One of the most common culprits is an overdose of acetaminophen, a painkiller so ordinary it hides in plain sight, inside every household cabinet. A handful too many, taken accidentally or in despair, can overwhelm the liver's detox machinery and trigger a collapse indistinguishable from our imagined 24-hour strike. History tells similar tales. In ancient times, healers knew the liver was different, even if they could not see its chemistry. The Mesopotamians believed it was the seat of the soul. Roman physicians described it as the furnace of the body, where blood was cooked and renewed. The myths may sound fanciful, but they were born from observation. When people turned yellow with jaundice, when their bellies swelled with fluid, when their minds grew foggy and they slipped into coma, the liver was always at the center of the story. The silence of liver disease is what makes it so dangerous. You can live with only one kidney, with half a lung, even with a single hemisphere of the brain. But there is no survival without a functioning liver. Unlike other organs, its absence is catastrophic in hours, not days. And unlike the heart, it does not sound alarms when it struggles. It carries on quietly until suddenly it cannot. Inside the body, the chemistry is staggering. Without bile, fat cannot be digested, and vitamins A, D, E, and K are locked away from absorption. Without proteins like albumin, water leaks out of vessels into tissues, swelling ankles, filling bellies, suffocating lungs. Without clotting factors, every bruise is a bleed, every scratch a risk. And without constant glucose regulation, the brain, so dependent on a steady sugar stream, runs out of fuel. Picture an entire metropolis where electricity cuts out block by block, traffic lights fail, water pressure drops, and garbage mountains rise on every corner. By nightfall, the city is unlivable. That is your body without its liver. And yet, paradoxically, the liver is also the most forgiving organ you own. It regenerates. Surgeons can remove 2/3 of it, and the remaining tissue can regrow to near full size. Patients who donate half their liver to a loved one watch it rebound, reshaping itself into a functional organ once more. This resilience makes the scenario of a sudden strike even more shocking. An organ so powerful, so adaptable, can still unravel you completely when it falls silent for just one day. Think again of those 24 hours. Imagine a young woman arriving at the hospital after unknowingly taking too much acetaminophen during a flu. She is jaundiced, weak, confused. Her blood sugar is low, her clotting is impaired, her abdomen swelling. Doctors rush to stabilize her, pumping glucose, giving plasma, starting dialysis to filter toxins. For a moment, they buy her time. But unless a donor liver becomes available, unless the failing organ is replaced, she will not last. Each hour, the poisons rise. Each hour, survival chances fall. The 24-hour clock ticks in real life, as surely as in our story. The lesson is stark, but it is not hopeless, because while liver failure can be sudden, it is also preventable. Most of the time, this organ does not collapse overnight. It is chipped away over years by alcohol, by fatty diets, by hepatitis, by neglect. The quiet guardian absorbs the blows again and again until finally it cannot. But when we respect it, nourish it, protect it, it rewards us with resilience unmatched by any other organ. So perhaps the better question is not what happens if the liver stops for 24 hours, but what happens if we never let it reach that breaking point. Imagine the alternative story. A liver that never has to strike because we feed it wisely, limit the poisons we demand it to filter, vaccinate against viruses that scar it, and treat it as the indispensable ally it truly is. That story ends not in collapse, but in longevity, strength, and survival. The thought experiment is frightening because it is real. The liver is not optional, not secondary, not replaceable for even one day. And yet, the very fact that you are alive right now is proof of its tireless work. Every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of clarity you enjoy is made possible because in the background, the liver has never taken a break. Not once. The countdown of 24 hours without a liver is not just a thought experiment. It is a reality that medicine has wrestled with countless times. Picture the hospital ward at midnight, fluorescent lights humming overhead, machines beeping steadily. A patient lies restless on the bed, their skin tinged yellow, their belly swollen tight, their eyes glassy with confusion. The diagnosis is acute liver failure, and from this moment forward, the doctors are racing against time. Every hour lost narrows the chance of survival. There was once a man in his 30s who walked into the emergency room complaining of fatigue, nausea, and a strange yellowing of his eyes. He had been taking over-the-counter painkillers for weeks, believing he was safe because the label said they were common. What he did not realize is that too much acetaminophen is not simply harmful. It is lethal to the liver. By the time he reached the hospital, his blood was already toxic. His mind drifted in and out of clarity. He spoke in fragments, words slurring together, then silence. Within 12 hours, he was in a coma, and within 24, his only hope was a transplant. His family watched helplessly as machines kept him alive, buying precious hours while surgeons searched for a donor. This was no theoretical collapse. This was the clock of survival ticking loud and merciless. The fragility of this organ makes its resilience all the more astonishing. In ancient times, people recognized the liver's power long before science explained it. Babylonian priests read the future by inspecting the livers of sacrificed animals, believing this organ held divine secrets. In Greek mythology, Prometheus was condemned to have his liver eaten each day by an eagle, only for it to regrow by nightfall. Even myths understood what medicine later confirmed. The liver is regenerative, a rare marvel among organs. And yet, despite this gift, once it shuts down completely, no natural regeneration can save you fast enough. A transplant becomes the only door between life and death. The tragedy is how quietly the decline hides. Unlike the heart that pounds or the lungs that gasp, the liver does not cry out until it is nearly gone. People live years with silent damage, drinking heavily, taking pills without caution, eating diets that choke it with fat. Then one day the signs appear: yellow eyes, fatigue, bleeding gums, swelling bellies. By then, the guardian has been crumbling for years. Our 24-hour strike compresses this long, hidden collapse into a single brutal day. But the truth is the same. Once the liver stops, the body follows quickly. Meanwhile, the poisons inside you multiply. Ammonia clouds your brain, bilirubin stains your skin, proteins vanish from your blood, and water leaks everywhere it should not be. Your blood itself becomes thin, unable to clot. The smallest bump leaves dark purple marks, and a minor nosebleed could become life-threatening. Inside, bleeding may already be filling your stomach or your intestines, hidden until it is too late. The kidneys drowning in waste, slow to a crawl, and the heart begins to misfire as electrolytes slip out of balance. The brain swells, the skull tightens, and your consciousness fades. The city of your body has lost its governor, and every district is collapsing in chaos. Modern medicine fights back with desperate tools. Dialysis machines filter toxins from blood, buying time but never replacing the liver fully. Plasma transfusions provide clotting factors, patching leaks but never sealing the damage. Glucose drips feed the starving brain. Doctors fight hour by hour, each intervention holding the storm at bay for a little longer. But they all know that these are temporary measures. Without a transplant, without a new liver to take the reins, survival is measured in hours, not days. And so the story turns from science to survival. In the intensive care unit, families sit by bedsides, whispering prayers, watching monitors, hoping for the call that a donor organ has been found. When it happens, when surgeons carry a new liver into the operating room, there is still danger, still risk, but there is also hope. Because of all organs, the liver alone can gift life to two people. A single donor liver can be split, one part transplanted into a child, the other into an adult. Prometheus's myth of regeneration lives in modern halls of surgery. Beyond the hospital, myths about the liver continue to circulate, but now in different forms. Detox teas, miracle cleanses, fad diets promise to reset or flush the liver. The truth is harsher and simpler. The liver does not need flushing. It is the flush. It is the organ that does the detox for your entire body. No juice or powder can match its chemistry. What it needs is protection, not tricks. Protection from alcohol binges that scar it, from hepatitis viruses that inflame it, from years of fatty foods that suffocate it. Protect it, and it will serve you faithfully. Ignore it, and one day it may stage its final strike. So we return to the question: what if your liver stopped working for 24 hours? The answer is brutal. You would not survive without immediate intervention. Toxins would overwhelm you, bleeding would break you, coma would claim you, and death would follow swiftly. But the deeper truth is this: every single day of your life, your liver has never stopped working. It has carried you through sleepless nights, careless meals, drinks poured too freely, medicines taken without thought. It has shielded you in silence, never asking for thanks. Perhaps now, with the nightmare painted clearly, you understand why this organ deserves more than neglect. Respect it, protect it, treat it not as a background player, but as the guardian it truly is. Because if it ever stopped, even for a single day, the story of your body would end. And that is the shocking truth about liver failure and survival. The 24-hour collapse of the liver is terrifying, not only because it is fatal, but because it is invisible until the very end. Even in modern hospitals, doctors describe liver failure as one of the most deceptive conditions they face. Patients often walk in still talking, still moving, perhaps only a little tired, a little nauseous. Hours later, they are unconscious. Days later, without intervention, they are gone. The speed of decline feels unnatural, as if life has been pulled out from under them without warning. Chemistry explains why. Every molecule of food, every drug, every hormone ends its journey in the liver. Take away this control center and balance vanishes instantly. Proteins that give structure to blood vanish and vessels leak. Hormones pile up and confuse the body's messages. Cholesterol production halts, which might sound like a relief, but cholesterol is also the raw material for hormones and cell membranes. Even your mood is altered because neurotransmitters are left unmanaged. What looks from the outside like fatigue and confusion is, on the inside, chemical anarchy. The strangest part is how the brain reacts. Poisoned by ammonia, it slips not just into fog, but into altered reality. Patients describe vivid dreams, visions of people who are not there, conversations with long-lost relatives. Families watching from the bedside hear their loved ones laugh, weep, shout in languages they did not speak. These are not dreams. They are chemical hallucinations, the brain's neurons misfiring under toxic weight. The cruel irony is that some of these hallucinations are euphoric, even blissful, while the body itself is dying. In history, these moments were seen as possession, madness, or divine punishment. In medieval Europe, jaundice and confusion were blamed on curses. In rural Asia, swollen bellies filled with ascites were called signs of bad spirits. It was only in the last century that medicine connected the dots and traced it back to the liver. Today, we call it hepatic encephalopathy, but the suffering is the same as it ever was. As the hours progress, the kidneys shut down. Doctors know this as hepatorenal syndrome, a cascade where the collapse of the liver strangles the kidneys. Blood vessels constrict, starving the kidneys of flow. Urine output falls to almost nothing. The body is now locked in a closed circuit, toxins rising with no escape. Swelling worsens, pressure builds in the chest, and breathing becomes desperate. The skin stretches so tightly over the belly that it shines, and every movement feels like carrying a heavy stone. Meanwhile, the heart is pulled into chaos. Without balanced electrolytes, its rhythm falters. Sometimes it races so fast that oxygen cannot keep up. Sometimes it slows into dangerous pauses. At the bedside, monitors beep frantically, showing erratic peaks and valleys. Nurses rush in with medications trying to steady the beat, but the underlying storm remains. The heart, brain, kidneys, blood, all are crumbling because the liver has walked off the job. In modern medicine, doctors deploy extraordinary measures. Dialysis machines hum beside the bed, drawing blood, filtering it, returning it a little cleaner than before. Plasma bags drip into veins, providing missing clotting factors. Tubes deliver glucose and electrolytes. Ventilators breathe for the patient as the brain drifts deeper into coma. Each machine becomes a stand-in for a single task of the liver, but never for all. They are placeholders, fragile bridges, meant only to hold back death until a donor liver can be found. And yet, survival stories exist. A young woman poisoned by mushrooms, her liver destroyed in hours, received an emergency transplant and woke weeks later alive. A child born with a genetic defect received half a liver from his mother, and both survived. The mother's liver regrowing, the child's thriving. These are miracles of modern surgery, echoes of the myth of Prometheus, proof that humanity has learned to borrow the liver's regenerative gift. But for every survival story, there are tragedies. Families who waited too long, patients who never received the call that a donor was available, lives lost in silence. That is why prevention matters most. Protecting the liver is easier than saving it once it fails. Vaccines against hepatitis, moderation with alcohol, care with medications, avoiding reckless supplements. These are shields we can all raise. The liver asks for little, but it gives everything. So when we ask what happens if your liver stops for 24 hours, the answer is grim. The body unravels, the mind slips away, and survival depends on intervention beyond nature. But behind that grim truth is a deeper message. This organ is your most loyal ally. Every second you live, it has never abandoned you. It has filtered your excesses, repaired your mistakes, and carried you through abuses without complaint. It is the silent worker that deserves your gratitude. Imagine again the clock striking 0, the first hour of the strike beginning. Now imagine the opposite, a lifetime where the liver never fails because you chose to protect it. In that story, the factory never closes, the city never collapses, and the guardian never leaves its post. That is the story worth living. The clock of survival does not tick evenly when the liver fails. Each passing hour does not simply add more discomfort. It multiplies the danger, accelerating the descent. By the time half the day is gone, the body is already a battlefield. Every system that once worked in harmony now fights alone, stripped of the command that kept them balanced. The bloodstream is no longer a highway of nutrients and oxygen. It has become a river clogged with debris. Ammonia floods in from protein metabolism, unprocessed and unchecked. Your breath carries its faint odor, sweet and metallic, a smell nurses recognize instantly. It is not just in the air, it is in your brain. Neurons struggle to fire properly, thoughts slow, memories dissolve. You try to speak, but your tongue feels heavy, your words tangled in fog. It feels like being trapped inside a dream where every step is through mud. The kidneys, overwhelmed, begin to falter. They were once the loyal assistants of the liver, filtering water and salts, fine-tuning balance. But without the liver, they are overrun. Urine dwindles, darkening in color, then nearly stops. The poison now has nowhere left to go. It recirculates, climbing higher with each heartbeat. Your body is turning into a closed system of waste, recycling its own toxins over and over. Meanwhile, the belly swells further with acidic fluid, pressing upward into your chest. Breathing becomes labor. Lungs cannot expand, ribs ache, every breath shallow. You sit upright, instinctively, gasping for space. But the heaviness never lifts. Families watching see the change. The once easy rise and fall of your chest, now replaced with short, desperate gulps. Blood becomes a traitor. Without clotting factors, it loses its discipline. Small vessels ooze, gums bleed, bruises appear like purple blossoms on your skin. Inside, hidden bleeds may already be draining strength. Nurses check your arms, your legs, your mouth, noting every sign of thinning blood. They whisper about transfusions, plasma, platelets, temporary measures to patch what the liver once provided without effort. And then comes the brain's revolt. Swelling builds within the skull, pressure rising with no place to go. Your mind drifts further. At first it was fatigue, then fog. Now it is confusion, delirium slipping in and out of reality. You see shapes where there are none. Hear voices that never spoke. You laugh at things unspoken. cry at shadows. The people around you become strangers, their faces blurring. Soon, even those hallucinations fade into silence as coma pulls you under. This is what doctors dread, the irreversible march into unconsciousness. Machines can breathe for you, filters can clean your blood, drips can feed your veins, but no machine can wake a poisoned brain. At this stage, the only salvation is a new liver. Without it, the strike is permanent, the body's systems too entangled in failure to recover. And yet, in this darkness, modern medicine has pulled off miracles. There are stories of patients teetering at the edge, their bodies swollen, their minds gone, only to be rescued by a midnight call. A donor liver has arrived. Surgeons rush them to the operating room, machines hissing, monitors screaming, families praying. Hours later, the poisoned organ is gone, replaced by healthy tissue, stitched carefully into place. Blood flows into the new graft, pinking it alive, and almost instantly the chemistry begins to shift. Toxins decline, clotting factors return, fluid drains, the fog lifts. Within days, the patient wakes, groggy, weak, but alive, from the edge of death, pulled back by a gift of life from a stranger. But not every story ends this way. Too often the liver never comes. Waiting lists stretch long, and time is short. Families are told the truth in quiet corners of the ICU. Without a transplant, survival is measured not in weeks, not even in days, but in hours. The strike cannot be reversed. It can only be replaced. It is here, in this painful reality, that the lesson of the thought experiment becomes clear. The question, what if your liver stopped working for 24 hours, is not a curiosity. It is a warning, a reminder that this organ, silent and overlooked, is the difference between life and collapse. It is the guardian that does not ask for thanks, but deserves it more than any other. And so the story bends back to prevention, to the things within our control before the nightmare begins. Vaccinations that shield against viral hepatitis, moderation with alcohol that spares the liver from scarring, careful use of medications, skepticism toward miracle cleanses that promise false shortcuts. The truth is simple. The liver does not need detoxing. It is the detox. What it needs is protection, patience, and respect. Think of it each time you take a drink, swallow a pill, choose a meal. Think of it each time you tell yourself your body will forgive you endlessly. It will, until the day it cannot. And then, in just 24 hours, you will learn the lesson too late. The strike is only a story here, a narrative spun to imagine the unimaginable. But in hospitals around the world, that story plays out daily. Some survive. Many do not. The difference often comes down to how soon the problem was seen, how quickly medicine could intervene, and whether a new liver could be found before the last hour ticked away. So remember the guardian inside you, the factory that never rests, the builder, the filter, the silent protector, because if it ever walked away for even a single day, everything else would follow. The night wears on. In our imagined day without a liver, time no longer feels steady. The body that once kept rhythm with meals, sleep, and breath now slips into chaos. By the 20th hour, everything is fraying at once. You lie still, but inside, every system screams. The heart beats erratically, the kidneys choke, the brain swells, the lungs gasp for space. You do not feel hunger anymore. You do not feel thirst. What you feel is weight, an unbearable heaviness pressing from inside and outside, as if gravity itself has turned against you. Doctors call it multi-organ failure, but that phrase is too neat for the storm unfolding in your blood. The failure is not clean, it is messy, violent, drawn out. The blood thickens in places it should flow and thins where it should clot. Electrolytes spark like faulty wiring, jolting the heart into spasms. Blood vessels widen and constrict without pattern, starving tissues of oxygen one moment and drowning them the next. The brain, desperate for glucose that the liver once supplied, starves slowly, neuron by neuron, slipping further into silence. And yet, even in the quiet collapse, the body tries to fight. Cells switch to emergency metabolism, breaking down muscle to fuel the starving brain. Fatigue becomes unbearable as your body cannibalizes itself. The muscles ache, weaken, tremble. You cannot sit up. You cannot hold a glass of water. You are dissolving from the inside out, buying minutes of clarity at the cost of your own flesh. Centuries ago, such suffering was wrapped in myth. The Greeks imagined the Titan Prometheus bound to a rock, his liver devoured daily by an eagle only to regrow by night. The story was a punishment, but it was also a strange recognition of the organ's regenerative gift. Today, surgeons marvel at the same phenomenon. A person can donate half their liver, and in weeks, both halves, donor and recipient, regrow into full organs. But that same resilience has a cruel limit. Once the liver stops completely, no amount of regeneration can keep pace. It is like trying to rebuild a burning factory while the fire consumes it faster than workers can lay bricks. History is full of moments when humanity tested that resilience. In the mid-20th century, when the first liver transplants were attempted, survival was measured in days, not years. Surgeons stitched desperately, but the immune system rejected the new organ, and patients slipped back into failure. Only later, with the discovery of powerful anti-rejection drugs, did transplantation become a true lifeline. Today, thousands of lives are saved this way every year, but demand always outpaces supply. For every patient who receives a new liver, many more wait, watching the clock tick, knowing that their 24 hours may be running out. The cruelest irony is how often liver failure is preventable. Viruses like hepatitis B and C scar it slowly, but vaccines and treatments can halt the damage. Alcohol can shred its tissue, but moderation spares it. Fatty diets can choke it with silent deposits, but exercise and balance keep it free. Even common pills taken without care can overwhelm it. The organ that forgives so much is undone not by mystery, but by neglect. As the 24th hour closes, coma is deep and death is near. Machines can extend the fight, but only so far. Families gather at the bedside, whispering final words, hoping they are heard, hoping their loved one feels their hands on the sheets. Outside, a phone may still ring with news of a donor organ. Inside, the body is a battlefield of silence. And when the clock strikes the final minute without a new liver, the battle ends. But the story need not end in despair. In every survival case, the liver's resilience writes a new chapter. A man once poisoned by wild mushrooms recovered fully after a transplant. His new organ thriving, his life extended by decades. A child with congenital failure grew strong after receiving half of his mother's liver. Both healed, both alive, a living testament to the gift of regeneration. These stories remind us that even on the brink, there is hope. The question then is what we do before we ever reach that brink. The liver does not ask for much. Protect it from excess. Vaccinate against viruses. Treat medications with respect. Question miracle cures that promise to cleanse what is already the body's greatest cleanser. Give it balance and it will give you life. Ignore it and one day the strike will not be imaginary. So what happens if your liver stops for 24 hours? You know now. Collapse, coma, death. But behind that answer lies the greater truth, that every day it does not stop, it is carrying you through life, quietly, tirelessly, unseen. And perhaps that is the lesson worth remembering, that the organ we forget most often is the one that protects us every single moment. That survival is not about miracles or machines, but about respect for the silent guardian that never sleeps. And that if you ever imagine life without a liver, you are imagining a world without life itself. In every hospital, there are stories that mirror the 24-hour nightmare of liver failure. One such story belonged to a young woman who believed in natural medicine. She foraged mushrooms in the forest, certain that nature could heal more than it could harm. Within hours of her meal, nausea struck, then vomiting, then dizziness. She assumed it was food poisoning, a simple stomach bug. But the mushrooms she had eaten carried amatoxins, compounds that slice through the liver like blades. By the time she reached the hospital, her skin had already begun to yellow. Doctors worked furiously, pumping her stomach, flooding her veins with fluids, trying every antidote known. But the toxins had already destroyed the factory inside her. The countdown began, and by the 12th hour she was confused, mumbling half-formed words, her brain smothered in ammonia. By the 24th hour she was in a coma. Her only chance was a transplant. Fortune was on her side, a donor organ was found, surgery succeeded, and she awoke days later, fragile but alive. She survived, but her story is repeated each year by others who are not so lucky. Another patient was a man in his 50s who drank heavily for decades. At first it was just a glass after work, then a bottle, then more. The liver tolerated the punishment for years, regenerating, repairing, patching itself together. But one evening his family found him slumped on the couch, confused, speaking nonsense. His skin was waxy yellow, his belly grotesquely swollen. At the hospital, doctors discovered his liver had scarred into cirrhosis, unable to recover any longer. He had not overdosed on a drug or eaten poison. His own habits had simply worn the guardian down until it could no longer serve him. He survived for a short time with dialysis and plasma, but no transplant came in time. His 24-hour window stretched into days, but the outcome was the same. His family buried him with the bitter truth that his death had been preventable. There was also a child born with a genetic defect that left his liver incapable of processing bile. From his first months, his eyes and skin glowed yellow. His parents watched as his tiny body grew weaker, his growth stunted, his belly swollen. Doctors explained that without surgery, he would not live to see his 5th birthday. His mother made a choice. She offered half of her liver. Surgeons cut carefully, transplanted the section into her son, and stitched her back together. Both survived. In weeks, the mother's liver regrew. In months, the child thrived. Today, he plays in schoolyards, a boy alive because the liver is one of the rare organs that can be shared and reborn. These are not tales of fiction. They are proof that the strike we imagine in our thought experiment is real, and that its outcome depends on speed, on intervention, on luck. But let us return to the body itself, to the science of its collapse. Without bile, fats sit undigested in the gut, causing nausea, bloating, and greasy stools. Without albumin, the protein that holds water in vessels, fluid leaks everywhere, drowning the body from the inside. Without clotting factors, the tiniest vessel becomes a threat, the smallest wound a potential hemorrhage. Without glucose regulation, the brain starves, shivering neurons burning out one by one. Without detoxification, every cell in the body becomes its own enemy, producing waste it can no longer escape. This is why the body without a liver dies so quickly, because it is not one failure, but every failure at once. Ancient people knew there was something sacred about this organ. Babylonian priests carved clay models of sheep livers and studied them for omens. They believed the future could be read in its shape, its color, its marks. Romans called the liver the seat of passion, anger, and courage. Even language remembers it. The word liver once meant life itself. The myths were wrong in detail but right in instinct. The liver is central, indispensable, the very core of being. Modern medicine replaced myth with science, but awe remains. Surgeons who hold the liver in their hands during transplant describe it as both fragile and powerful. an organ that bleeds easily yet regenerates with unmatched resilience. To replace it is to give life. To lose it is to lose everything. The first liver transplants in the 1960s ended quickly in rejection, patients surviving only days. Today, with better drugs and techniques, survival stretches into decades. Yet the clock still rules. When the liver stops suddenly, the window to act is narrow, for many, too narrow. The myths of cleansing and detox teas are cruel illusions against this truth. No juice flushes poisons from your system. No powder resets the liver. It does not need tricks, it needs respect. Respect means moderation with alcohol. Respect means care with medicines. Respect means vaccines, exercise, balanced meals. Respect means knowing that the liver already does what every fad promises. It is the detox, the flush, the filter. It does not need help, it needs protection. As the imagined 24 hours draw to their close, the body is beyond saving without intervention. The coma is deep, the blood is thin, the kidneys are silent, the heart stumbles. Machines can hold back the tide for hours, perhaps days, but the end is inevitable without a transplant. This is not a gentle end. It is confusion, swelling, bleeding, and silence. It is the slow suffocation of a city that once thrived. And then, in some stories, the miracle arrives. A donor liver is carried into the operating room, pink and warm, filled with life. Surgeons connect vessels, stitch carefully, wait for blood to flow. And when it does, when the organ flushes with crimson and begins its work, the chemistry changes almost instantly. Toxins fall, clotting returns, swelling subsides, and the body slowly awakens. The 24-hour nightmare ends not in death, but in rebirth. The lesson is simple but immense. The liver does not stop for 24 hours in real life, but it can fail suddenly. It can be overwhelmed, poisoned, scarred beyond repair. When it does, the countdown begins. But until that moment, it is tireless. It has never asked for thanks. It has never rested. It has carried you through sleepless nights, careless meals, reckless drinks. It is the silent guardian, the hidden factory, the warehouse of life. To imagine its strike is to imagine the end of the world within your body. To respect it is to give yourself the best chance at life. So when you think about health, do not only think of the heart or the brain. Think of the organ that gives them both the power to thrive. Think of the liver and remember that without it, even for a single day, there is no survival. That is the shocking truth of liver failure. That is the story of 24 hours without your guardian. That is the story you must never live.